Our lives are laid out on a road of bumps, turns, struggles, and more. How do we respond? How do we endure adversity for learning and growth? I'm Aubrey Johnson, and we'll explore these questions and more on the Road to Rediscovery. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Road to Rediscovery. I'm your host, Aubrey Johnson. The Road to Rediscovery is about reflecting on life lessons to learn and grow from them, and of course, pay it forward and uplift others who are struggling through dark times. You know, for the past few years, you've heard me refer to our lives as a journey, right? Well, I also firmly believe that our life is a fight as well, right? Think about it. We fight to keep our heads above water financially, and we fight to have a fit body and mind. We fight to sustain our relationships with others. This is just a couple examples, just a few examples, but my special guest has had an incredible journey in the fight for her life, from having a successful PR business and wonderful family to being diagnosed with breast cancer. Her love of boxing for fitness gave her the principles and virtues for overcoming major adversities with a stronger mindset and an outlook on life, ultimately catapulting her over the grips of cancer. Her journey and reflections are captured in the book, The Fight of My Life, Boxing Through Chemo. Her story has been covered on TV news shows, and get this, she was a special guest on the Fight podcast, hosted by Hall of Fame commentator and trainer Teddy Atlas. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure. And you know, I'm a huge boxing fan, so I can't wait to dive into this conversation. Let's give a warm welcome to Kelly Motley. Hey, Kelly, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Aubrey. It's so terrific to be here.
Oh, no, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to chat with us. We reciprocate. I'm really excited to dive into this. So let's start by just sharing with the listeners where you're from and what was life like for Kelly growing up.
Sure, absolutely. Well, so let me just say that boxing not only taught me a life lesson, it literally and figuratively saved my life.
Mm,
I'm in Nashville, Tennessee, and you and your audience might be wondering why a woman with an incredible family, a loving husband, married almost 30 years, two remarkable sons. I
mhm.
had a incredible PR business working in Nashville's $92 billion healthcare industry.
Wow.
Why would I start down this path of practicing what is considered one of the most intimidating sports, boxing? And so for me, Aubrey, there are three themes to my story, and that is
Okay.
getting stuck and the
Mhm,
physical and mental tools for hope,
mhm.
and really considering who is in your corner and who you give your energy to.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Man, that makes so much sense. And yeah, there's so many parallels to boxing and other aspects of life. Now, um, you were actually immersed in these boxing workouts before you were diagnosed. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct. The universe was
Okay.
kindly, quietly giving me the very best to equip myself with me unknowingly, getting ready for one of life's biggest duels. I
Hmm.
fell in love with the sport. I practiced with my son initially. We did a martial arts called Jeet Kune Do,
Hmm.
and I needed to get better. And these were our Saturday workouts. And the only way for me to get better was through boxing. So I hired a super middleweight professional boxer, Senna Agbeko, who's from Ghana, training to
Hmm.
be the next champion from Ghana.
Hmm.
And I trained with a former Olympic boxing coach, Christy Halbert,
Hmm.
who took the women to the Olympics in, I think, 2011, 2012, and Royce Fentress, who is a strength trainer with a lot of well-known youth athletes. And so these folks became my corner.
Very nice. Very nice. And I guess, like you said, the universe equipped you for when this was to come, the diagnosis. I was going to ask if that made it easier for you to apply what you've learned about mindset and perspective. Once you found out you were diagnosed, it sounds like it has.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
Hmm.
when I first started training with Senna, he said, one morning, he said, imagine that we're strapping a tool belt to your
Hmm.
waist and we're stocking it with tools you can count on using. And
Hmm.
if it's empty, there's nothing to reach for. And so, luckily, I had probably about 15, 20 journals from all of my boxing lessons that I had stacked up in my family room. And so I really
Hmm.
leaned in to these journals, which became my book. And I wrote the book, Aubrey, that I wished I could have had when I was first diagnosed.
Mm.
Um, when you get a cancer diagnosis, it's
Hmm.
not going to be a comfortable road. Your
Right.
mind, your spirit, your body needs to be sharp like a sword for the battle.
That's right.
And I leaned into what I learned inside the ring to climb out of at the time was I thought was a pretty desperate, hopeless situation.
Hmm.
And what the boxing did for me mentally and physically was that it made me realize that that I am this is manageable,
Right.
that my body is resilient. And so it helped me take my mind and my body through self discipline from point A to point B through this process.
Mm. Amazing. Amazing. Wow. So, man, what a journey. And like you said, it equipped you mentally for that long hard road. I mean, like you said, it's not going to be a pleasant journey once you find out, and that you have cancer and get that diagnosis. So, can you share with the listeners? I'm getting feelings and senses of just a lot of gratitude, right? Just coming from you, and if you can just share with the listeners the role that gratitude has played in your life up to this point.
Well, let me say that we are all blindsided
Hmm.
by an unexpected circumstance.
Hmm.
For me, it was breast cancer. Others, it might be financial loss, divorce, loss of a career. We're
Hmm.
all beset by something, um, an internal conflict. For some people, it might be feeling dismissed or fear or worry, but we all have something that we're dealing with. And
Right.
um, this particular story is really about how do you change up your inside,
Hmm.
and gratitude is, you talk about the fight. And I do believe that every day we're fighting for something. And,
Hmm.
gratitude is important to be fighting for in your life and to really see. When you're going through this unexpected circumstance, it's just really important that you have a corner that has that gratitude. Not
That's right.
only are they focused on your intention and helping you visualize like where you want to be. As you
Hmm.
know, like pity can be a very dark place for people, can be a very
Hmm.
destructive force. Pity is like any other type of energy that you put forth. So I think when you talk about gratitude, it's important to have people around you who live in that space as well.
Yeah, yeah, you gotta have that corner, right? You have to have that support group, and, it's so strange, like I mentioned on the intro, I'm a big boxing fan, and so using I'm a man of metaphors, right? I love metaphors, and to me, they have true depth and meaning. I don't wanna toss them around as, catchphrases, but, life can have you on the ropes, to your point, in any situation, financially, with relationships, divorce, just all sorts of things can happen where you're blindsided, as you mentioned.
Mhm.
It just comes out of left field. So, with that, and we're going to touch on your book in a moment because I'm thrilled for you to share with the listeners just some anecdotes from your book, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So, now I want to ask you, I personally believe anyone going through cancer and chemotherapy would have those voices, like you mentioned, in their heads that can be quite defeating, right? It's wallowing in the pit of pity. I guess I've heard it called before. Um, those sounds and those voices can be quite defeating, uh, and just not right for the mindset. The times when you were not in the gym, let's say, but you were in the hospital, or say you were home alone, um, were you able to hear, or did you consider like hearing your coach's voice in your ear? And if so, what would they have been saying at that time?
So my coach, Sena Agbeko, would say to me, execute with confidence.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's really important.
Hmm.
My visuals, Aubrey, were really important to me. So if I had
Hmm.
6 surgeries, so if I were getting ready to go under the knife, I would have my images of my boxing gloves.
Hmm.
I would have my practicing. I would be watching all my videos,
Hmm.
and the visuals that you have around you are really, really important. But to be thinking really about your confidence and execution is really, really critical.
Gotcha. No, that makes 100% sense. It is very critical, and it gets you through those tough times, right? I mean, like we said, in the pit of pity, it's so easy to be in the moment there, and with so much darkness and despair, where you can't see the forest for the trees, and realize there is a way out of this, right? Um, During those times, let's say, for example, going through chemo. Obviously, from what I hear, it drains a lot out of a person physically. It makes them very exhausted, very tired,
Yeah,
maybe even feel, kind of just sort of weak physically, right?
right.
And so it's easy to go in that pit of pity, to just think back to when I was stronger. Oh my gosh, I'll never be strong like that again. I was boxing, I was skipping rope, I was hitting the speed bag, and so forth. And you reframed it. It sounds like, it sounds like you reframed it in such a way where the visuals drove you to push
Mhm,
harder,
mhm.
along with the words from Abeko, um, uh, uh, you know, uh, drive with confidence, execute with
Absolutely.
confidence,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. So going into this, I
Hmm.
thought, I knew that the best conditioned fighter dictates the fight.
Right.
And
Yes.
I knew what I was up against. And there's so many commonalities between, the chemo and the cancer. You've
Hmm.
got the seconds ticking down. You've got the unpredictability. You've got
Hmm.
a lot of emotions around despair and courage and vulnerability, the
Hmm.
bleeding, the bruising. You have a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
And boxing, is a mindset, and
Hmm.
healing is a mindset.
Hmm.
And so for me, I really leaned into these principles. And I also feel like, this is not just a breast cancer story. This is really about, anyone who's dealing with an adversity or an unexpected circumstance,
Right.
that circumstance that might, rip your heart out in ways you can't imagine, or seeing in
Yes.
a blink of an eye how things can just get lost.
Hmm.
And fighting, not cowering, not surrendering,
Yeah.
but really leaning into that one circumstance that we never thought would happen to us, the inconceivable, and putting on that boxer's mindset and
Hmm.
moving through to another side where maybe you are mentally, spiritually, physically a stronger person.
Hmm.
Maybe you're happier, and maybe you're a better version of yourself.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so what was bizarre about my trajectory was, I was around 50 years old, and, I was imagining how this was gonna impact the rest of my life.
Right.
And then, 9 months later, Senna and my other and Royce Fentress were saying, "You're a better version of yourself. You are
Hmm.
a better boxer."
Hmm.
And, really thinking about yourself, that, these you don't that the greater things could happen to you, and you could potentially be a better version of yourself through going through a very difficult situation.
Oh, sure, sure, without a doubt, and it sounds like your coaches and trainers were able to detect a transformation in you and becoming a better
Mhm.
version of yourself, not just physically, but there's I always feel there is a I don't like the word aura, but there is a presence um, that is sort of visual, I guess, that someone can detect when they see you, and you're more confident than, say, your earlier version of yourself.
Mhm.
You're more confident, you're more sure of yourself. Um, you hold yourself accountable, you take action, and you think more logically, and just something something that appears different about someone who carries that air, you know. And it sounds like they detected at it in you physically, and and the other way as well, right? Psychologically, spiritually, emotionally, a transformation in you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I look at my videos and
Hmm.
it's bizarre, but I'm hitting harder,
Hmm.
and the intensity, the focus, the
Hmm.
technique, everything for some reason is improved. Um,
Hmm.
and my trainers are one thing that Senna taught me was, if you don't lean into your opponent or
Right.
that threatening situation, it's going
Hmm.
to affect your balance.
Hmm.
It's going to put you in the line of fire.
Yeah.
You're gonna be in a worse situation, and for me, before when I first started boxing, that sounded very counterintuitive,
Yes.
leaning into my opponent, really? And
Yes.
so, learning some of these boxing practices and
Mhm,
principles were
mhm.
really important.
Yeah, yeah, I can definitely tell from that, and like you said, leaning in. I smile when you say that, because as you were saying that, I was thinking about an earlier conversation you and I had regarding a book from Teddy Atlas that I read called Atlas, from the Streets to the Ring, and he basically, in an autobiography, kind of talks about his upbringing and his mindset when it came to facing adversities or fear, or feel like he's being threatened. And he talked about the art and the mastery of leaning in. He even mentions that it may be counterintuitive, but he breaks it down in how leaning in allows you to push through that adversity, right? And
Mhm,
so I think that's incredibly important for anyone to know in any capacity of life and any adversities that they're going through. I'd love to talk about your book right now. Okay, The Fight for My Life: Boxing Through Chemo. Um, and I'm sure there's going to be a couple questions, follow up questions I have that may touch on the book, or are referenced in the book. So before I even ask those questions, if you can just share with the listeners, at a high level, what this book's about. I know we kind of touched on it leading up to right now, but if you can just share a little more insight.
absolutely. So, in life, there are circumstances we can't see coming, circumstances we would never voluntarily choose.
Hmm.
And one of my coaches always says your purpose is greater than your circumstance.
Hmm.
And
Mm, love it.
my story takes place. Um, it was a stroke of luck for
Hmm.
me to discover boxing,
Hmm.
and I talk about how the principles I learned inside the ring helped me climb out of, at the
Hmm.
time, what I thought was a desperate, hopeless situation. Before I started boxing, I was in a dull um, place of feeling stuck, not
Yeah.
stumbling, but
Yeah.
really stuck in my life. I
Hmm.
had a client, a major client. I work in the healthcare industry doing public relations,
Hmm.
um, and it was a bout that just went on every day. I was
Hmm.
praying, I was meditating,
Hmm.
and I would be in meetings, and my emotions would swing from frustration to anger to fear to
Hmm.
shame. And one day, I just to pull my emotions from the brink, I pulled out of my driveway and went up the street to a Boxercise gym and just pounded away at a heavy bag.
Hmm.
And thinking I would really be great at this boxing thing because I was so angry, not realizing, that's the last emotion. And
Mhm.
I'm sure we've all had those times where we felt like punching something, and that was how I felt. And so, I went from this gym to really getting into this Bruce Lee style fighting with my son,
Mhm.
and training with Senna Agbeko and Christy Hulbert, not knowing that I was getting ready for the biggest fight of my life.
Mm.
And so I write about the principles of boxing and everything that I learned, and I go into the difficulties of a healthcare system. I
Mhm.
was told, at one point by the CEO of the largest healthcare system in the world that hospitals were the most dangerous place. So I had
Mm.
way too much information going into this, and
Right.
talk about my own will, and how I went down a path of this special nutrition that I was told I wouldn't lose my hair. And so I talk about, in my book, how all of this just comes completely undone, my hair,
Mhm.
everything, and
Mm.
how I end up getting an infection in my port. And, that really becomes another fight for my life.
Right. Right. Oh my gosh. Um, so at what part of your journey did you decide to write the book and begin writing it? Were you still going through chemo, or was it after you finished chemo, or
So I, before a couple of years before I got diagnosed, I'd met Perry Wallace,
Mhm.
who was an important figure in Nashville and at Vanderbilt, and he died of cancer.
Mhm.
And for some reason, I met him, I connected with him, and when I first got diagnosed and I started having my surgeries, I just started thinking about Perry and really leaned into all of the journals. I mean, my journals
Mhm.
were my book. So I started writing when I was going through chemo. I wanted people to know that if I could do this, they could do it too.
Right.
And I just
Right.
wanted to write the book that I wished I could have read when I was diagnosed.
Gotcha.
So
Wow.
that was my process.
Okay. Fantastic. Oh, that's wonderful. So, you mentioned something about purpose, and if you can, just for the listeners, kind of repeat that. Your purpose is greater than
Your circumstance.
your circumstance.
Yeah,
Love it.
yeah, yeah, my
Yeah.
trainers, if you're
Mhm.
struggling,
Mhm.
I have to do a lot of one-arm planks with one of my trainers, and,
Gosh.
he's always about telling me, "Kelly, it's temporary. This is temporary."
Mhm.
So, for me, I really focused on different stages of the chemo, the surgeries,
Mhm.
that, this is temporary and this is around.
Right. Right. So instead of looking at the whole thing as one big fight, you probably broke it down round by round,
Mhm.
stage by stage, right? And breaking it down in those chunks, I think, makes it more manageable, and it allows you, for me at least, it would allow me to lean in more and empower me to lean in more, and know that, hey, if I can do it at this round, I can do it at the next round, and so forth. Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to ask you about purpose, okay? Because you talked about your purpose is greater than your circumstance, and I
Mm.
am a total believer and advocate of that. Um, I feel, as a fellow cancer survivor, that something like cancer can really cause someone to reframe their life.
Mhm.
For me, surviving cancer caused me to really hone in on learning and understanding my true purpose,
Mhm.
in this world, because I feel like my life was spared, and or saved, so there's got to be a deeper purpose, because I wasn't just saved or spared for no reason. So, having survived cancer, what is Kelly's rediscovered purpose in this world?
So I'll tell you, one is, um, I want to get my book into as many hands as possible. People
Hmm.
who might wake up at 3 in the morning feeling desperate or hopeless.
Hmm.
Again, knowing if I can do it, they can do it. regardless of their unexpected circumstance.
Yeah.
And then I am launching free breast cancer clinics. They're boot camps called Music City Fight.
Oh,
And
very
they're
nice.
free boot camps, and they have a lot of the my trainers in my book to
Hmm.
help women who have been diagnosed with breast cancer get mentally, physically, and spiritually stronger before they're getting ready for the battle. And so I'm launching these boot camps in Nashville,
Hmm.
and I have a company that's putting billboards up all around the city, Blackbird, all over the city of Nashville for probably about a week before my boot camps, and they're starting November 13th. So there'll be Senna Agbeko will be there, Royce Fentress, Christy Holbert, and um, Richard Goodlow, who's the Jeet Kune Do instructor, and then
Hmm.
a special person, Langston Stevenson. And Langston is a professional boxer, and he is an amputee.
Oh my goodness, really?
Yes.
Oh man,
So I've got
that's
these
tremendous.
incredible elite
Hmm.
coaches, professional boxers there to
Hmm.
really help women who might have just been diagnosed and don't know like what the next step looks like.
Gotcha, gotcha. Wow. So, uh, is it safe to say, or is it accurate to say that with what you've learned in boxing, with the mindset, with perspective, with just different virtues, right? Um, you've learned these principles from your coaches,
Mhm.
and that seems to have been conveyed through your experience through cancer, into the book as a tool for coaching people through all of their adversities and challenges and so forth, right?
Exactly. So, like,
Mhm.
example would be hitting the speed bag. When I
Yes.
first walked into a gym,
Mhm.
I've avoided the speed bag.
Mhm.
Never felt confident, didn't feel comfortable.
Mhm.
And I realized through my conversations with Christy that I had really been telling stories to myself.
Mhm. Mhm.
And the speed bag, and then I've mastered it like nobody's
Mhm.
business. And the speed bag is really something where, you are in a situation, you look for patterns, you make that back, you make it adjust to you and
Yeah.
adapt to you, and you think about situations like that,
Mhm.
and it's really empowering.
Mm. How about thinking? Does your mind move faster? Do things physically appear slower when you're thinking faster? Does it cause you to think faster, I guess, when it comes to either the speed bag or any type of training in boxing?
For me, it's all about my breath management, and I
Okay.
just feel very connected to my soul and
Hmm.
my mind, and then my mind is actually just very empty. And so that's when I feel that I do my very best work.
Very nice. Very nice. And I wanted to also ask you about from the beginning and the idea that you had for your book to the end result when the book is published and released, right? Um, in a lot of cases, with a lot of people, the way something turns out that they embark on a journey for isn't always 100% what they thought they wanted it to be in the beginning. So, do you feel like you've gotten the message across in the result of your book, which I'm going to buy and read, by the way, um, and it lines up with your original intent to write the book in the beginning before you even picked up a pen?
It's more than I could have ever imagined.
Awesome,
It's more, and
awesome.
getting feedback.
Hmm.
One of the world's biggest Christian authors, Stormy O'Mardian, different Teddy Atlas,
Hmm.
Rebecca Wells, who's one of the biggest authors in the 1990s. Getting people like that really
Hmm.
to endorse my book has really just been incredible, and I'm so grateful.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome. So, Kelly, how can the listeners learn more about you and pick up a copy of your book?
Sure. So you can pick my book up at any retailer.
Mhm,
Um, you can also pick it up at thefightformylife.com, which is my website, which has more information about me as well.
mhm. Fantastic. We're going to make sure and put those links in the episode show notes, direct links to the website and to where you can pick up a copy of the book. And while you're listening to this wonderful conversation, you can click those links and order a copy and connect with Kelly. Kelly, I want to really thank you for a great conversation. I've really enjoyed this and really appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Aubrey. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, absolutely. And so now I'd like to go into a segment I like to call Three for the Road. And in Three for the Road, Kelly, I ask my guests three random yet thought provoking questions, encouraging them to answer in 5 words or less. So, what do you say, Kelly? You think you're up for it?
I'll try.
All right, fantastic. Okay, so let's go. Question one. Let me find it here. Where is it? Oh, here it is. All right. Question one, starting us off for Three for the Road. And by the way, none of my questions are cookie cutter. Okay. I don't ask the same questions to every guest. My
Okay.
questions are customized based on your journey, your experience, and your background. All right.
Okay.
All right. So, question number one, describe the type of punch that would equate to getting hit with the news of having cancer.
That'd be like a knockout punch.
A knockout punch. Okay, well said. Well said. That says it all right there. All right, question number two. What has Kelly learned about herself in the fight for her life?
I'm just going to go back to what my coaches have talked to me about, that
All
your
right.
purpose is always greater than your circumstance.
Your purpose is always greater than your circumstance. I want the listeners of this show to really, really let that sink in. Take that to heart. It's so totally true. So totally true. Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, topping us off for Three for the Road. Question number three. This one should be easy. It's a fill in the blank. The power of the will allows us to,
Overcome any obstacle.
right on, 3 words, overcome any obstacle. Beautiful. Kelly, that's Three for the Road. Again, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I'd love for us to stay in touch. And I'd love to help spread the word, okay, for this boot camp that's coming up in Nashville, right? I'd love to just gather more information from you on this and help spread the word.
Thank you so much, Aubrey.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I want to thank all of you for tuning in and listening. And as a quick reminder, the Rediscover Roadmap digital course is now available. This course allows you to take an introspective approach to your personal growth and development and self accountability through the 4 pillars to personal growth. That's gratitude, service to others, humility, and self awareness. So if you want to look more into this digital course, feel free to visit roadtorediscovery.com/course. That's roadtorediscovery.com/course, where you can get a free preview and you can register to take the course as well. All right, guys, more importantly, if you have a loved one or someone that you know who seems to be at the end of their rope, they lost all hope, they don't know what to do or where to go in the darkest, deepest days of despair, I humbly ask that you please share this show with them. Because on the road to rediscovery, there are 2 things we want our listeners to know. Number one, you're not alone. And number two, there is always, always hope. We're all roadies on this journey of life, and it sure feels good having you on the road with me. Thanks again for listening. We'll chat again soon. We really hope you enjoyed this episode of The Road to Rediscovery. We'd love to hear from you. Shoot us an email at roadtorediscoverypodcast@gmail.com and leave us any questions or comments you may have. The Road to Rediscovery is an AJ Shark production.